Your digestive system runs a self-cleaning cycle every single night. And most people are doing something in the first hour of their morning that stops it from finishing the job. That is not a warning designed to alarm you. It is a description of a biological process that has been happening in your body your entire life. A process that becomes slower and easier to interrupt after 60, and one that, when it works the way it is supposed to, protects you from bloating, constipation, sluggish digestion, and the chronic low-grade inflammation researchers now link directly to fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, and weakened immunity. When it does not work the way it is supposed to, those same problems tend to accumulate quietly until they feel like simply what aging feels like. They are not. Understanding what this process is and what either supports or disrupts it changes everything about how you treat your gut every day. The digestive system's self-cleaning mechanism is called the migrating motor complex. It is a wave of muscular contractions that sweeps through the small intestine roughly every 90 minutes during fasting, moving undigested debris, bacteria, mucus, and cellular waste from the upper intestine down toward the colon for elimination. Think of it as the digestive tract's overnight housekeeping cycle. The low rumbling from deep in your abdomen when you are not hungry is not hunger. That sound is the migrating motor complex running a cleaning sweep. It is your gut doing exactly what it is designed to do when given uninterrupted fasting time. The problem is, what happens the moment you eat? The migrating motor complex stops immediately when food enters the stomach. It will not restart until roughly 90 minutes after the stomach has emptied. Every time you eat, every snack, every caloric drink between meals resets the timer to zero, and the cleaning cycle cannot complete its sweep. After 60, the migrating motor complex slows naturally. The electrical signaling from the 500 million neurons embedded in the gut wall that coordinate these contractions becomes less efficient with age. What was once a thorough overnight cleaning sweep becomes a partial, interrupted cycle that misses sections of the intestinal wall. This is one of the primary biological reasons that bloating, constipation, and digestive sluggishness become more common after 60, not because the gut is broken, but because the maintenance cycle keeping it clean is running at reduced capacity and being further disrupted by eating patterns most people have never been told interfere with it. The migrating motor complex is highly responsive to specific inputs. You can slow it down with the wrong choices. You can meaningfully restore it with the right ones. Those choices require no medication, no supplements, no procedure. They require understanding what the gut actually needs. Before we get to those inputs, let me ask whether any of the following matches your experience. Do you feel bloated regularly, not just after large meals, but as a general background state that does not seem tied to anything specific? Do you have a bowel movement less than once a day, or is each one effortful enough that you are aware of it as a deliberate event? Do you feel full very quickly when you eat, and does that fullness linger well past the point when it should have cleared? Do certain foods you used to digest easily now reliably cause gas or discomfort, particularly vegetables, legumes, or anything high in fiber? Do you wake up with a coated tongue or a stale taste in your mouth even after brushing the night before? If several of those are familiar, you are not experiencing generic digestive decline. You are experiencing the specific, identifiable consequences of a migrating motor complex that is not completing its cleaning cycles. Every one of those symptoms has a biological explanation tied directly to what happens when waste and bacteria accumulate in the small intestine between incomplete cleaning sweeps. Every one of them is addressable through the approaches below. The first and most impactful change is extending your overnight fasting window long enough for the migrating motor complex to complete at least 2 full cleaning cycles before breakfast. Each cycle takes 90 to 120 minutes. For 2 complete cycles to run before the first meal of the day, you need at least 3 to 4 hours of uninterrupted fasting after you wake. That means eating your last meal of the previous day early enough that the total overnight window from final meal to first bite of breakfast is at least 12 hours, and ideally 13 or 14. A person who finishes dinner at 6 p.m. and eats breakfast at 7 a.m. has a 13-hour window. That is enough for 2 full cleaning cycles, possibly 3, before the morning meal interrupts them. A person who finishes dinner at 9 p.m. and eats breakfast at 7 a.m. has a 10-hour window, barely enough for 1 incomplete cycle, and any morning coffee with cream resets even that. A study published in the journal Neurogastroenterology and Motility found that adults over 55 who maintained a minimum 12-hour overnight eating gap showed significantly greater migrating motor complex cycle frequency and amplitude during sleep compared to those with shorter fasting windows. The gut cleaned itself more thoroughly, more consistently, in those who simply ate their last meal earlier. This is not intermittent fasting as a weight loss strategy. This is giving the gut the uninterrupted time it was built to use. The second input is adequate water consumed in the right pattern between meals rather than with them. The migrating motor complex depends on the intestinal walls being adequately hydrated to generate effective peristaltic contractions. Dehydration does not just make stool drier, it reduces the contractile force of the smooth muscle in the intestinal walls directly, weakening the sweeping action of the cleaning cycles. But large volumes of water with meals dilute stomach acid, slowing gastric emptying and delaying the restart of the migrating motor complex after eating. The pattern that best supports gut self-cleaning is 2 glasses of water first thing in the morning before eating, which also activates the gastrocolic reflex and stimulates colon movement. Then, consistent sipping through the morning and early afternoon, slowing down in the 30 minutes before and during meals. Adults over 60 need a minimum of 6 to 8 glasses of water daily for adequate intestinal hydration, and many fall significantly short because the sensation of thirst diminishes with age. By the time you feel thirsty after 60, mild dehydration affecting gut motility is already underway. The third input is a daily serving of fermented food to support the mucosal lining of the gut wall. The migrating motor complex does not work in isolation. It works within an intestinal environment that is either hospitable or hostile to effective cleaning. And the primary factor is the health of the mucus layer lining the gut. This layer protects the intestinal wall from digestive acids and provides the physical surface across which the cleaning sweeps move waste. When it is thin or inflamed, bacteria that should be confined to the large intestine migrate upward into the small intestine, and the fermentation they produce there creates the bloating and discomfort that many people over 60 accept as their gut's new normal. Fermented foods, plain yogurt with live cultures, kefir, and sauerkraut made without vinegar introduce the bacterial strains that produce the short-chain fatty acids your colon cells use to repair and maintain that mucosal layer. A Stanford University study published in the journal Cell found that adults who added fermented foods daily for 10 weeks showed significant increases in microbiome diversity and measurable reductions in 19 inflammatory markers compared to a control group on a high-fiber diet. The fermented food group did not take supplements, they ate food. 1 serving daily is the target. Consistency matters more than quantity. The fourth input is a 10-minute walk after at least 2 meals each day rather than sitting down immediately. When you lie down or sit after eating, gastric emptying slows because gravity is no longer helping move stomach contents toward the small intestine. A stomach that empties slowly delays the restart of the migrating motor complex. Research published in the Journal of Gastrointestinal Motility found that a 10-minute walk after a meal accelerates gastric emptying by approximately 30% compared to sitting. The movement does not need to be vigorous. It needs to be upright and sustained for at least 10 minutes. The peristaltic activity that resumes after a short walk is measurably more robust than the activity that follows seated rest. For people over 60, the most practical implementation is a brief walk after lunch and another after dinner, even just around the block. This is not exercise in the cardiovascular sense. It is using the mechanical effect of upright movement to accelerate the transition from active digestion to the cleaning mode that follows it. The fifth input is eliminating all eating between meals, so the gut receives genuine fasting intervals throughout the day, not just overnight. Every eating event resets the migrating motor complex, regardless of size. A full meal and a small cracker have the same effect on the cleaning cycle. People who eat 3 meals and 2 snacks daily are giving the migrating motor complex only the time between meals to run partial cycles and never the extended window it needs for thorough cleaning. After 60, digestion of each meal already takes longer than it did at 40 because stomach acid production and enzyme availability both decline with age. Adding snacks on top of slowed digestion means many people over 60 are in a near continuous state of active digestion for most of the waking day, with the cleaning cycle never getting a meaningful window at all. The adjustment is simple. Stop eating between meals. Drink water, drink herbal tea, but consume nothing caloric between breakfast and lunch or between lunch and dinner. For many people, this single change produces a noticeable reduction in bloating within 2 weeks as the cleaning cycles begin completing more fully in the intervals between meals. There are 5 widely held beliefs about gut health after 60 that the research does not support and that some people find are actively worsening their situation. More fiber always improves digestion. Fiber supports colon health, but high fiber intake in a gut with an impaired migrating motor complex and reduced stomach acid can significantly worsen bloating and gas. Undigested fiber in the small intestine feeds bacteria that have accumulated there because cleaning cycles have not been clearing them. Restoring the migrating motor complex comes first. Fiber optimization comes after. Probiotic supplements reliably improve gut function in older adults. The evidence for probiotic supplements in healthy adults over 60 is inconsistent. Most commercial strains do not survive the journey through stomach acid in viable numbers. Fermented foods deliver bacterial strains protected within the food matrix alongside the prebiotics those strains need to colonize effectively. Food outperforms capsules consistently in the research on gut microbiome diversity. Laxatives are an appropriate long-term solution for constipation. Stimulant laxatives force the large intestine to contract chemically. They do not address the underlying impairment of the migrating motor complex in the small intestine. Used regularly, they reduce the gut's natural sensitivity to its own motility signals, creating a dependency that makes the original problem progressively worse. Stress has no meaningful effect on digestion. The migrating motor complex is coordinated by the enteric nervous system, which communicates constantly with the brain through the vagus nerve. Acute psychological stress suppresses migrating motor complex activity directly. Chronic stress means the cleaning cycle is running in a suppressed state every day. 5 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed, breathing in for 4 counts and out for 6, activates the parasympathetic system and increases the vagal tone that supports gut cleaning cycles during sleep. Post-meal discomfort is simply an unavoidable feature of aging. It is common, it is not inevitable. Discomfort after eating is a signal from a gut that is not cleaning itself effectively between meals, that has accumulated bacterial populations in the small intestine that should not be there, and that is fermenting food components rather than digesting them cleanly. That signal is addressable, not something to accept and manage indefinitely. The questions that come up most often when people over 60 begin applying these approaches are worth addressing directly. How long does it take to notice a difference? Changes in bloating and gas are typically noticeable within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent meal timing and the elimination of between-meal snacking. These reflect the reduction in bacterial load in the small intestine as cleaning cycles begin running more completely. Changes in bowel regularity tend to follow within 4 to 6 weeks. Mucosal improvements from daily fermented food take 6 to 10 weeks. The right things to monitor are not the scale, but morning gut comfort, ease of bowel movement, and the absence of post-meal bloating. Can these approaches help if you have a diagnosed digestive condition? Irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulosis, and small intestinal bacterial overgrowth are all influenced by migrating motor complex function and intestinal bacterial balance. The approaches described here are generally consistent with dietary management recommendations for all three, but small intestinal bacterial overgrowth in particular often requires specific medical diagnosis and a short course of targeted antibiotic treatment before dietary restoration becomes effective. If you have any diagnosed digestive condition, use this information as a complement to your medical care, not a substitute for it. Margaret was 66 years old and had been dealing with daily bloating for 4 years. Margaret moved her bowels every 2 to 3 days and accepted this as simply her pattern. She ate 3 meals and 2 snacks daily, the last of which was something small while watching television at 9:30 in the evening. Her total overnight fasting window was barely 10 hours. Her continuous snacking throughout the day meant the gut had no meaningful between meal windows either. She was taking a daily probiotic supplement and an over-the-counter fiber supplement, both of which had been recommended by her previous doctor, and she reported that neither seemed to be doing anything useful. She was not wrong. The changes Margaret made were not dramatic. She moved her dinner to 6:30 p.m. and stopped eating after that, extending her overnight window to 13 hours. She stopped all between-meal snacking. She replaced her probiotic supplement with a cup of plain yogurt at breakfast and a tablespoon of sauerkraut with lunch. She began a 10-minute walk after both lunch and dinner. She started the diaphragmatic breathing practice before bed. Within 2 weeks, Margaret's bloating had reduced noticeably. Within 6 weeks, she was moving her bowels daily for the first time in years. Within 3 months, she told her doctor she felt better in her gut than she had at any point in the previous decade. Her doctor confirmed her improvement was consistent with restoration of migrating motor complex function and reduction in small intestinal bacterial load. Margaret had been given supplements and fiber. What she needed was time and timing. Let us bring everything together. Your gut cleans itself automatically through the migrating motor complex, which runs during fasting windows between meals and overnight. After 60, this cleaning cycle slows naturally and is easily disrupted. The 5 things that restore and support it are these. Extend your overnight fasting window to at least 12 hours by finishing your last meal earlier in the evening. Drink water between meals rather than during them, beginning each morning with 2 glasses before eating. Eat 1 daily serving of fermented food, plain yogurt, kefir, or sauerkraut, to maintain the mucosal lining the cleaning sweeps depend on. Walk for 10 minutes after at least 2 meals each day to accelerate gastric emptying and bring forward the start of the next cleaning cycle. And eliminate all between-meal snacking so the gut receives genuine fasting intervals during the day, not just at night. The 5 misconceptions to move past are that more fiber always helps, that probiotic supplements reliably work, that laxatives are appropriate ongoing management, that stress has no digestive effect, and that post-meal discomfort is simply aging. If this video gave you a clearer understanding of what your gut does when it is left to do its job, hit like so this channel can keep bringing you this kind of science. Comment below with the digestive symptom that has been bothering you the longest: bloating, constipation, post-meal heaviness, irregular bowel movements. Just name it. That comment reaches someone else who has been told their gut problems are just part of getting older. Share this video with someone in your life who has quietly accepted that answer. The gut does not stop working after 60. It stops being given the conditions it needs to work. Those conditions are entirely within your control starting today.